for a brand new show. Scooby Doo is here again, away we go.
Scooby Doo is running from a spooky ghost.
Shaggy isn't doing what he does the most. Hey, come on, get involved till the mystery is solved.
Hang around for Scooby Doo.
Hey, come on, get involved till the mystery is solved.
Hang around for Scooby Doo. That's my pal. Scooby Dooby Doo.
Hello, Scooby Doo fans! Welcome to my Season 1, Episode 5 review of The Scooby Doo Show. Before we continue, I just want to wish you guys a quick Happy New Year. I hope you guys had a great rest of, the year in 2024 and got to enjoy the holiday season and got to celebrate the new year, 2025, in style. I hope you guys enjoyed the final video of last year. And now we're beginning the new year with the episode 5 of season 1 of the Scooby Doo Show, and I can't wait to give you guys more Scooby Doo content for this new year, so I hope you guys enjoy it. But anyways, last time I continued my reviews of the Scooby Doo Show with a review of season 1, episode 4 of the Scooby Doo Show. I hope you guys enjoyed that. That was very fun to tackle on Christmas, and was a winter-themed episode, so it was quite, fitting for the that holiday for me to review that episode, and it, of course, was the famous 10,000 Vault Ghost episode, so I a blast reviewing it. But of course, today I'll be covering season 1, episode 5 of the Scooby Doo Show, titled The Headless Horseman of Halloween, which was released on October 9th, 1976. The short synopsis of the episode is, in Sleepy Hollow, the gang investigate the legendary Headless Horseman when he shows up at a Halloween costume party at Crane Manor. So as per usual, I'll be watching season 1, episode 5 of the Scooby Doo Show on the Scooby Doo Dynamite Hour, the complete series DVD. This DVD, of course, has every episode of season 1 of the Scooby Doo Show, as well as the Dynamite series. So if you guys like both of those, then you'll enjoy this. Unfortunately, this is the only DVD that has season 1 of the Scooby Doo Show. So if you want season 1 of the Scooby Doo Show on any sort of physical media, any sort of DVD, then this is your only option. Now, as far as this episode's reception is concerned, I believe most fans really love this episode. It's considered one of the best episodes of the series, one of the best episodes of the franchise, and one of the more spookier episodes in the franchise. You'll see it a lot in compilation DVDs of the spookiest episodes of Scooby-Doo. And it's the first Halloween episode of the Scooby-Doo franchise, and it tackles a very famous story, the Sleepy Hollow story of Ichabod Crane and the Headless Horseman. A story that you guys know, if you're familiar with my channel, know that I like, because I've tackled the Sleepy Hollow TV show. I even tackled one of the older Sleepy Hollow movies from the 20s, like a silent film called The Headless Horseman. So I love the story of Sleepy Hollow, and I love the setting of Sleepy Hollow. It's a very fascinating story, Ichabod Crane and the Headless Horseman. And, the setting of Sleepy Hollow as a whole. I love that story. But I also love that this episode is the first to tackle Halloween. You guys know I'm a big Halloween guy. Halloween's my favorite holiday of the year. So any Halloween-themed episode is a really, amazing one in my book, because that gets me really excited for it. So yeah, it's very high regarded. It's considered one of the best of the series, on a different league compared to the 10,000 Vault Ghost episode, because while that episode is highly regarded for its villain, this episode is highly regarded for, the themes of it, more than the villain, like the Halloween theme and aesthetic to it, and the Sleepy Hollow theme and setting to it, and tackling the story of, Ichabod Crane and the Headless Horseman. That being said, does this episode live up to the hype of the Scooby-Doo community and, the expectations that people have set out for it? Is it a good episode that deserves the praise and recognition it gets? Or do I maybe fall in line with a different, community and consider it, decent or even bad? Well, let's find out, shall we? So let's take a look at the episode to see whether I think it is a good or bad episode of the Scooby Doo Show. The episode begins with a raging Halloween party happening at a fancy mansion. Outside, in the foggy night, a horseman rides by with a grinning pumpkin for a head. The mansion is the huge and studious Crane Manor, and Mr. Ink has been invited by Mrs. Crane to the Halloween party. Scooby-Dum, Scooby's cousin, is also there with Mr. Ink. Now, there's a bit of a writing inconsistency with Scooby-Dum, as Shaggy says that Scooby-Dum is Scooby-Doo's brother in that scene. But in a later scene that I'm going to be showing when we get there, when Scooby sees a reflection of himself, Shaggy says, "Scooby, that's not your cousin," which contradicts what he said earlier. But in every other episode, Scooby-Dum is called Scooby-Doo's cousin, and that's what most sources say he is. So I think that was just a bit of a writing inconsistency that they just had in the beginning of the episode. I don't know why. They certainly act like they could be brothers, but they're not, and they're cousins. So just in case, if you guys are wondering, if you're confused by that, writing inconsistency, no, Scooby-Dum is not Scooby-Doo's brother. He's his cousin. Fred, Daphne, and Velma are bopping for apples, while Shaggy and Scooby are hitting up the buffet table, as per usual. And Scooby, Shaggy, and Scooby-Dum encounter the Headless Horseman outside and run back inside to tell the others. Daphne, Fred, and Velma are in the library with Mrs. Crane's niece, Beth. Beth mentions that her great-great-grandfather was Ichabod Crane. Scooby and Shaggy run in and tell their story, and Beth fears that the Headless Horseman has come back to haunt her family, considering her grandfather, Ichabod, was chased by one years earlier. Back on the party floor, the Headless Horseman makes an entrance, causing some havoc. He claims he wants a head and scares away the guest, but not Mystery Inc. The gang decide to split up and look for clues, although not in their Halloween costumes, which is unfortunate. They ditched their Halloween costumes for the rest of the episode. Maybe they didn't want the hassle of animating it for the full episode, but I wish they kind of had stuck with their costumes. It kind of would have been fun if the gang were just solving the whole mystery in their costumes. But maybe it was just easier to default to their normal, getup. And in case if you were wondering, I'm sure I'll show, clips of it. But Fred was dressed up as a pirate. Daphne was dressed up as a fairy princess. Velma was dressed up as a witch. Shaggy as, a vampire. And Scooby and Scooby-Dum were a horse. Velma, Scooby, Scooby-Dum, and Shaggy search upstairs. They start looking into rooms but find nothing. Velma returns downstairs, and Shaggy and Scooby-Dum run into the Headless Horseman, who gives chase. I love the sewing room chase scene. Not only is it fun and entertaining, because of Shaggy and Scooby's comedy, as well as Scooby-Dum's, but also the scare factor of it. The fact that the Headless Horseman wants to get their heads and throws his pumpkin head at them, and tries to get them and tries to get their heads. It's a good scene that showcases both horror and a good blend of horror and comedy, which is what I love about Scooby-Doo. So that's why I think the scene is the best scene of the episode. We have Shaggy and Scooby-Dum's wonderful comedy mixed in with the Headless Horseman's really scary and intimidating presence by declaring he wants one of their heads.
Scooby-Dum, where are you?
Scooby-Dooby-Dum!
Scooby, that's not your cousin.
Huh?
That's your reflection.
That's me, all right. Uh-oh.
Zoinks! It's old Pumpkin Puss.
What?
He's coming after us.
Yeah.
Yikes! Look, we wrapped old Pumpkin Puss like a salami, Scoob.
We did?
Correction, it's only a dressmaker's dummy.
Let's make it from me. It's Scooby-Dooby-Dum!
Okay, fellas, okay. Now let's get out of here. Zoinks! It's him!
I want a head!
Excuse me.
Give me your head!
Sorry.
Then I'll take yours.
Like my head? Oh, no, you don't want this. Bad material. Sloppy workmanship. Look. Hasn't worked since the day I got it. Always loose. No, you'd be very unhappy with this head. Zoinks!
Shaggy and the two cousins run downstairs to tell the gang, but when they all return upstairs, the horseman is gone. Mrs. Crane is nearly grabbed by the horseman, and Mystery Inc. tries to comfort her when a man appears and explains that the horseman is not after her head, but is after Mrs. Crane's necklace. Beth says that this is her cousin Elwood. He states that ever since Mrs. Crane brought the necklace into the house, the horseman has been appearing. Elwood makes an exit, and Daphne, Fred, Velma, Scooby, Shaggy, and Scooby-Dum get to work. Elwood takes Mrs. Crane's necklace to the bank, and then after his car disappears into the fog, the gang notices the Headless Horseman riding again, but now with Elwood's head. The gang finds Elwood's car deserted and finds a small picture of Elwood with glue on one side. The ignition keys are missing, and a newspaper clipping that talks about a flying saucer spotted at a beautician's convention. They bump into Tarloff, Mrs. Crane's butler. He explains that someone chopped a tree down and it fell on the power lines, cutting the power to the mansion, and he was walking to the neighbors to complain. The gang go to where the Headless Horseman is supposedly buried. Fred and Velma figured it out and race to the airport. Sure enough, the Headless Horseman is there, about to take off in a plane, but Scooby and Shaggy accidentally hop on the plane with the Horseman and manage to elude him as the plane soars through the air. Finally, the plane wrecks and the Horseman is captured. And the Headless Horseman turns out to be, no surprise, Cousin Elwood, who was after Mrs. Crane's diamond necklace all along, so he made up the Headless Horseman to trick Mrs. Crane into believing the necklace was cursed. Honestly, once they showed him, even though it was effective that he faked his death, once the Horseman had his head, it kind of made it somewhat obvious that it was most likely him. Even the clues helped point towards that. But that's not necessarily a bad thing, because the clues did an excellent job with it. And him faking his death actually elevated the scariness of the episode. It's just an observation that I noticed. And it makes it a little bit more easier to guess that it's Elwood. So we get the clues explained to us as well. Elwood grabbed the missing keys out of habit when he left the car, and the picture was a passport photo for Elwood to fly out of the country. Also, Elwood was lying when he said he called the bank, because the butler said the phone lines were down. Shaggy, though, found the biggest clue of all. On the other side of the clipping, the one about the, flying saucers at the beautician's convention, it reads that Apex, Elwood's shoe company, had filed for bankruptcy, so he tried to steal the diamond necklace. Shaggy says that it was the perfect crime until the gang found the clues that made it all look fishy, which couldn't be a more truer statement coming out of Shaggy's mouth. Scooby-Dum hears the word clue and starts looking for more, and hearing a splash, Shaggy and Scooby-Doo look for Scooby-Dum, and Scooby-Dum comes out of the pond saying that he's found a clue. And the episode ends with the clue being a fish, and the fish squirts water at Scooby-Dum, causing everyone to laugh at this. I'm going to give Season 1, Episode 5 of the Scooby Doo Show 5 stars out of 5. Yeah, this was a fantastic episode. I really loved rewatching this episode. Such a blast rewatching it. I can see why it's considered one of the best episodes of the Scooby Doo Show. It's a fantastic episode. It doesn't have, many flaws to it. Obviously, I do have some negatives to it. But for the most part, this episode is solid, it's strong, it does everything right, and it was such a fun time rewatching this episode. And a really good classic Scooby-Doo episode. So, before I get into my pauses for the episode and what I liked about it, I'll dive into my small amount of negatives that I have for the episode. So starting with the negatives, I really only have one negative for the episode, and that concerns the two female members of the gang, Daphne and Velma. Daphne and Velma, to me, are very weak and underutilized in this episode. Daphne practically did nothing in this episode, contributed nothing to the story, really. Wasn't really a leader. Didn't find any clues, didn't piece together the clues to help solve the mystery, wasn't cowardly, wasn't comedic, none of those things. Daphne felt very, out of place in this episode, just didn't really do anything, and that's a shame. I would have liked for Daphne to have something to do, but unfortunately, she just didn't. As for Velma, same thing. She just didn't fulfill her usual role. I don't think she pieced together the clues to help solve the mystery. I think Fred more so did that, and I'll get on to him in a little bit. She wasn't a leader. She wasn't cowardly or comedic. She didn't find any clues. So Velma, I think, was underutilized as well and very weak. So yeah, my only real issue with this episode is that I think the female members of the gang didn't get the best, wasn't really utilized the best in this episode. They didn't get enough moments to shine, and I feel bad for them because, I want to see all the gang succeed. It almost made me consider possibly giving this a 4, but I enjoyed this episode so much that I was willing to overlook it and give it a 5. And I do stand by that. I do think it's a 5-star episode, but it could have been even more perfect had Daphne and Velma just been given more to do. But regardless, I can accept it because Velma does have moments of chemistry with the rest of the gang, and Daphne does as well. So I can get past it, but again, I definitely would have preferred some type of moments for Daphne and Velma. Velma didn't fulfill her usual role, and Daphne really didn't contribute much to the episode either. So that's really the only issues that I have for the episode, that Daphne and Velma were just weak and underutilized, not utilized to the best of their abilities. But that's all I got for negatives, so let's get on to my many positives for the episode. So starting off my list of positives, we'll begin with Fred. Fred, I thought, was a great leader in this episode. He really helped lead the way. He was his usual, he fulfilled that usual role of being a fantastic leader, taking charge, telling the gang where they're going to go next, what they were going to do. He definitely fulfilled Velma's role more in this episode. I think Fred really helped piece together the clues to help solve the mystery. I don't think Velma really did. I think Fred was more so turning the gears in his head and was piecing together what was going on. So to me, Fred fulfilled that role more than Velma did. I would have liked for Velma to have filled that role. It would have been great for her character. But regardless, Fred did do a great job doing that. And I think he did a good job, trap-wise. It wasn't the most eccentric trap, but it was pretty simple. I think it was like a parachute or something, or like some type of, net, that was going to drop on, the Headless Horseman when he was going to take off in the plane. So, nice, neat little trap. And it wasn't really Fred's fault that it failed. It was really Scooby. I don't know what made Scooby trip. Maybe it was just because he was on some narrow beams. Maybe he was distracted. I don't know. But Scooby really goofed on that trap. So, can't really do anything about that, Fred. I feel bad for you because your plan probably would have succeeded if Scooby hadn't bungled it like that. But yeah, Fred, really good across the board. Great leader. Helped piece together the clues to help solve the mystery, and created quite a cool trap in this episode. Next up, we have Shaggy and Scooby. Shaggy and Scooby, I thought, were their usual funny, cowardly selves. Nothing really new for Shaggy and Scooby. I think they fulfilled their basic roles in this episode, but I don't think that was an issue. I think they were very funny, very entertaining. They really helped lighten the mood of this scary, spooky Halloween episode. They definitely provided the type of comedy that was needed to help balance it out, because this episode was pretty dark, pretty spooky, pretty scary. So it was definitely nice to have Shaggy and Scooby's comedy to help, balance that out. So they were pretty funny in that aspect. And yes, they were their usual cowardly selves. We expect that out of them. So nothing really fancy for Shaggy and Scooby. I just had a lot of fun with them. They fulfilled their usual roles, and they did a great job of it. It helped, elevate the episode a lot and help balance it out. And then finally, we have Scooby Dum. Scooby Dum was really great in this episode. Much better in his second outing than he was in his first, which is very surprising, but a very welcome thing to see. I'm very happy that he was much more fun and entertaining in this episode. What really helped him in this episode was that he helped find a lot of clues in this episode. He really did a great job of finding most, if not all, the clues in this episode. Scooby Dum helped find the passport photo. And even though Shaggy said Scooby found the newspaper clipping, it was actually, I think, Scooby Dum who did. Scooby Dum was digging, and the paper came flying at Scooby's nose. So I would say Scooby Dum found that too. So Scooby Dum did a really great job. He also helped capture the villain at the end with the net to catch Shaggy, Scooby, and the Headless Horseman. So he did a great job in that aspect. But I think also he had much better chemistry with Shaggy and Scooby in this episode. I think he had a lot better chemistry in this episode than he did in this first episode. It definitely felt more better in this episode. Shaggy and Scooby Dum had a lot of great moments and great dynamic in this episode. So they were a fun little trio in this episode. I enjoyed Scooby Dum's chemistry with Shaggy and Scooby, and I thought he helped contribute to the episode and find a lot of important clues in the episode. So Scooby Dum, much better this time out. You know, not as great. He didn't start out the best, but he definitely improved with the second outing. So I'm happy for him, and I'm glad that they did a better job with him in this episode and executed his character and gave him more moments to shine than in his first outing. Then we have the villain of the episode, and my God, the villain of the episode was fantastic. I love the Headless Horseman in this episode. They did a great job executing this classic villain from a really good story, you know, about the Sleepy Hollow story and the Sleepy Hollow setting. Really great character from a classic story, you know, really great villain that was well executed in the story. The Headless Horseman was fantastic in this episode. I absolutely loved him. Very scary, very threatening the whole way through. I loved his design too. I loved both of his designs. The first design was his pumpkin head. It was the headless, design where he had the pumpkin as his head. And the other one was where Elwood ditched the pumpkin head and used it just his own head and painted it white. Now, I will say that I definitely prefer the pumpkin head much more. When the Headless Horseman is headless, he's actually much better. When he gets Elwood's head, I think I'm kind of conflicted with that, you know, when he gets Elwood's head, because on the one hand, it helps elevate the scare factor of the episode. Because Elwood fakes his death and makes his family and friends believe that he got beheaded and killed by the Headless Horseman, and that the Headless Horseman took and stole his head, which made him such a threatening villain throughout the episode and elevated the scare factor, because it's like, oh, this is serious now. Anybody could, get hurt now. But it also, I also would say it definitely directed more attention towards Elwood and made it a little more obvious that it was him. But hey, I'm okay with it. I'm okay with him faking his death because it helped elevated the scare factor of the episode. It made it much more scary. It made the Headless Horseman more of a threat, even though it did point more towards Elwood and made him more suspicious. I like that he faked his death because it helped elevate the scare factor of the episode. So the Headless Horseman, I think, was much better in his pumpkin head design, but his Elwood design is just as creepy. But I definitely prefer the first design, when he wants a head and he has the pumpkin head declaring he wants a head. Like, he's really scary. He's really threatening. And I love him riding his little demon horse. He's just great. So he was very scary, very threatening throughout the episode. The Headless Horseman, one of the scariest villains of the Scooby Doo franchise. A very classic villain that was executed very well and integrated well into the Scooby Doo universe and Scooby Doo lore. I'm very pleased with the Headless Horseman's portrayal. As a fan of the Sleepy Hollow TV show and, that story and the setting, I love how they executed the Headless Horseman in this episode. So great job with the Headless Horseman as the villain of the episode. They did a great job with him as the villain. So outside of costume, I thought Elwood Crane was really good. I think the first thing that I liked is that I liked that he tricked his aunt as well as the audience into believing that the necklace was cursed, and that's what the Headless Horseman was really after, not a new head. This helped with the mystery of the episode, because this made the audience question what the Headless Horseman's true motives were. Does he want a head, like he's been saying the whole entire time throughout the episode? Is the necklace actually cursed, and is Elwood right, and does he actually want the necklace? Or does he want both? Does he want both a new head and the necklace? And I'll get on to more of that when we get to the mystery section of the episode and talk about why I like the mystery. And the other thing that I liked about Elwood Crane outside of costume is that he faked his death in this episode. His fake death really helped elevate the stakes of this episode, because it made things go from a 10 to an 11 or 12. Like, it really made things even more serious than it already was. The fact that he faked his death really made the Headless Horseman even more of a threat than he already was. The fact that he wanted a new head and was threatening to kill people was already bad enough. But now that it looks like that he achieved that goal and went through with his threats, made him even more scary and more threatening. So I really like that Elwood faked his death. because it made the episode even more scary, more effective, raised the stakes even higher, and elevated the episode. I thought the motive of the episode was pretty good as well. So the motive is that he wanted to steal his aunt's diamond necklace because his company filed for bankruptcy. Now, even though it's a money motive, it's done pretty well in this episode. It has enough layers to it to make it at least unique and interesting, because I don't think we've had, a guy who was in a high position of a company lose all his money, declare bankruptcy. He has no money, and instead of asking his family for help, he instead decides to just steal his aunt's necklace and flee the country, fake his death, and pawn it off for money, which shows how greedy of a man he is, but also how uncaring he is as a family member, because that clearly shows that he did not give a shit about his family. The fact that he didn't even want to, approach his family to ask them for financial aid, that makes him such, a character that, was unwilling or did not want to ask his family for help, or it didn't cross his mind. Either way, I think the motive was really done really well, because I don't think it's any similar to any other motives we've seen previously from the previous two series and in this series so far. And it has enough layers to it to make it good and fresh and different enough of a money motive to where it's not bare bones and simple and repetitive. So I like the motive. It works. I think it's a good enough motive. And it kind of, is very telling of Elwood's character and gives Elwood more layers, because then you're questioning, like, is he, what kind of man he is? Did he really care about his family or not? Did he even try to ask for help? Or, did it not even cross his mind? Just a lot of cool questions about Elwood's character. And, and it adds to it, which is great. A motive that adds to a villain is a really good motive. Then we have the suspects of the episode. So we have two suspects in the episode. We had Tarloff the butler, and we had Elwood Crane. Both legally suspicious. They fulfill the bare minimum of suspects. We had one villain, two suspects, so it was good. It definitely got, pretty obvious who the villain was once Elwood faked his death and they found clues in his car. But for half of the episode, it was pretty even. And it wasn't impossible after that point that, Tarloff couldn't have been the villain. But it definitely was, leaning more towards Elwood, towards, the second half of the episode, which is fine. It doesn't hurt that episode that badly, because you want clues to point towards, a specific person and eliminate another person as a suspect. So the suspect department was pretty good. Then we have the mystery of the episode. So I thought the mystery of the episode was pretty good. The mystery is essentially you didn't know what the Headless Horseman's true motives of the episode were. Did he want a new head? Did he want his aunt's, the aunt's necklace? Or did he want both? And if so, why did he want these things? What was he hoping to achieve? And we get those answers, and I thought they were satisfying answers. The head thing was just a front for, just to make it easier for him, and his character, his alter ego. Make it easy for Elwood, because I'm presuming it was hard for him to keep the headless stick up. And the necklace, we find out, he wants for money, because he went bankrupt. So the mystery is quite engaging. We're questioning the Headless Horseman's true motives. But even if we take Elwood out of the equation, if we assume this is like a real villain, we're also questioning, why does this real villain want both of these things? Like, why, does he want a new head? Does him getting a new head make him, not a demon anymore? Does it, help him in any way? What does he want with that? He seems fine without a head. And what does the necklace provide? What is, he's presumably like a demon or a ghost. Why would he need a diamond necklace? If it's cursed, what does he plan to do with it? Does he want to destroy it? Does he want to keep it? Does it have a higher purpose? Something like that. It all turns out to be a front, obviously. And it ends up being, the head is just a stick, part of his alter ego, to make it easier for him. and the diamond necklace is just for money purposes. But yeah, with Elwood in the equation and Elwood out of the equation, the mystery is still engaging no matter what way you look at it. So I love the mystery of the episode. Yeah, and I love the questions it provided and the answers that it provided as well. Then we have the clues of the episode. So the clues were really great. I really liked the clues of the episode. So the first clue was, of course, the wood chips, which explain him chopping down the power lines and the phone lines, presumably to probably, make it easier for him to escape, and not get the police and make it harder for the police to get involved until he's far gone. And also to make sure that his aunt and the rest of his family doesn't look into him saying that he called the bank manager, and discover that he lied. Then you have the passport photo, which explains how, like I said, what he was going to use to get out of the country. You have the missing keys, which is just explains that it was him because a ghost or demon wouldn't take the keys, so he took it out of habit. And the newspaper clipping explained why he wanted a necklace, which was good. So all the clues really help explain Elwood's, how Elwood was executing his plan and what his motive was. And it also helped narrow him down as a suspect. It pointed towards his direction once the clues were coming, as the clues were progressing. It was getting more and more clear that Elwood was the prime candidate, which is good because you want the clues to narrow down the suspects. That's one thing we hadn't seen in a while, is that it narrows down the suspect list, takes suspicion off of Tarloff. It's not that Tarloff couldn't be the villain, but it takes suspicion away from him and gears it more towards Elwood and makes it more likely that it's him, and Elwood becomes more of the prime suspect because the clues are starting to point towards him, which is what you want the clues to do, but it also helps point towards what his motive is and how he's executing that motive, what his plan is, how to get away. So clues were great. They did everything they needed to, and there were a good amount of clues in the episode, so I enjoyed the clues in this episode. I thought the atmosphere of the episode was really good. It was filled with tension and suspense, as well as creepiness and eeriness, mainly due to the villain and the stuff surrounding the villain. So the villain really, the Headless Horseman really helped elevate the atmosphere, because you were fearing for the gang's safety because of his threatening nature of wanting to take someone's head to replace his own. He wanted to kill someone to get a head, to get a new head for himself. That's very scary and very threatening, and it made the episode more scary, the atmosphere more scary and threatening, to the gang's safety, because any one of them could get hurt, and the Headless Horseman could actually enact that, that goal, that, his true intentions, his motive, at least at the time. But it's also good because of the dark, foggy night surrounding him. This dark, foggy Halloween night really, elevates it as well. Makes it very creepy, very eerie. It makes the villain even more scary because he's riding on the horse in this dark, foggy Halloween night. He's like sneaking up on people or like dropping in unannounced on people in Crane Manor, without a head, and throwing his pumpkin head at Shaggy, Scooby, and Scooby Dum in the sewing room. So the atmosphere was really great. It was very spooky, very eerie and creepy, but it also was filled with tension and suspense because you were wondering, is this too much for the gang? This is such a big, threatening villain that is threatening to kill people and take someone's head to fill his, because he's headless and needs a new head. So, like, can they overcome that and, not get hurt in the process? So it really threatened the gang's safety, and it made you on the edge of your seat wondering if the gang could achieve it without any of them getting hurt. And obviously they do, but still, the Headless Horseman is still a very threatening villain, so that doesn't change the fact that he's still a very scary and threatening villain. And Elwood faking his death even elevates that more, and makes it even more scary because it makes it seem like that he actually fulfilled his goal and killed someone and got a new head And now who knows what he's going to do now that he has a new head. He might cause even more havoc, right? So the atmosphere was great, filled with tension and suspense. I was constantly on the edge of my seat, fearing for the gang's safety. But I was also filled with a lot of creepiness and eeriness too, mainly due to the dark, foggy Halloween night surrounding, the Sleepy Hollow area and the Headless Horseman and Crane Manor, and just the villain in general being very creepy and eerie because of him declaring that he wants a new head and is willing to kill people for it. And my final positive is that I thought the setting of the episode was really great. It was very a Scooby-esque setting, which was the main setting of the episode was, of course, Crane Manor. I love Crane Manor. It's a very Scooby-esque setting, a secluded mansion in the middle of, nowhere, in the small town of Sleepy Hollow. And also the dark history surrounding Sleepy Hollow, the Civil War, and how the Headless Horseman lost his head, and how he chased Ichabod, not too long, many years previous to that for his head. And we don't know if obviously he didn't succeed, but you don't know what happened to Ichabod. Obviously, if you read the story, you know what happened to Ichabod, but in this one you don't know. So it's left ambiguous. And yeah, the setting is just really great. Obviously we don't stay at Crane Manor for a majority. We're there for a majority of the episode, but we also go to the graveyard. Typical Scooby-Doo one. We've had that before. Airport as well. Seen that before. Probably the least interesting of all the settings. Not a very interesting one. I liked it better when it was at Crane Manor, which is where the majority of the episode is. Nice, secluded, creepy mansion. In the middle of nowhere, where you have, houses are separated, miles on end, most likely. And it's a very Scooby-esque, effective setting that fits the tone and vibe of this episode. A great setting in my mind. Very creepy, very Scooby-esque, and fits the episode very well. Overall, guys, I would recommend this episode to fans and newcomers to the show. It deserves the praise and recognition it gets from Scooby-Doo fans. I can see why the Scooby-Doo community views it very highly and considers it one of the best episodes of the Scooby Doo show and one of the best episodes of the franchise. Because it's a really fantastic Halloween episode. It doesn't disappoint, really. It's just Daphne and Velma that really could have been done a little bit better. But overall, the episode was executed very well. Very spooky, very creepy, episode that captures the Halloween spirit really well, and definitely a must-watch episode around October and Halloween. So if you need an episode around the Halloween season in October, or Halloween specifically when October and Halloween rolls around, this is the episode I would definitely recommend. It captures the Halloween spirit really well. It does a great job with it. And it's the first Halloween Scooby-Doo Halloween episode, and it didn't disappoint. It delivered really well, and definitely a must-watch for Scooby-Doo fans. If you want a Halloween-centric Scooby-Doo episode, this is the episode I definitely would recommend you guys watch around October and Halloween season. Anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed the review. Please give it a like if you did. Comment down below your thoughts in the episode. Do you like this episode like me? Do you consider it one of the best episodes of the Scooby Doo show and, a very good Halloween episode and one of the best episodes of the franchise? Do you hate this episode? I'd be interested in that as well. Are you in the minority? Do you not like this episode? Do you think it's overrated? If so, please tell me why. Or are you somewhere in the middle where you just think it's okay and fine and decent, but it's not good or bad, which is also an interesting take that I would love to hear as well. I'm curious for your thoughts, so let me know. And subscribe for more Scooby-Doo content like this, or if you're just interested in any of my other content, plenty more Scooby-Doo content on the way, a whole new year of Scooby-Doo content to look forward to, and this is a Scooby-focused channel, so if you love talking all things Scooby-Doo, you love, engaging in discussions about all things Scooby-Doo, especially stuff that isn't talked about as much, then come join the channel and experience some amazing Scooby content. In my next video, I will continue my reviews of the Scooby Doo show with a review of Season 1, Episode 6 of the Scooby Doo show, titled Scared a Lot in Camelot, which I'm very excited to rewatch and revisit again. This is the second episode with Shaggy's relative, a New England Shaggy relative, and you guys know that I'm a New Englander, so any New England, relative of Shaggy's is great. But you guys also know that because Shaggy's my favorite character, I love seeing relatives of Shaggy, so I'm very excited to tackle Scared a Lot and Camelot and see how Shaggy's another one of Shaggy's relatives, especially his New England relatives, is tackled in that episode. And I have high expectations going into it, so hopefully it doesn't disappoint. But yeah, if you guys want to hear my thoughts on the Scare a Lot and Camelot episode with Shaggy's second New England relative and second relative in the Scooby Doo franchise, then join me next time. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching this video, and as always, peace out.
We got it all together for a brand new show. Scooby Doo is here again, away we go.
Scooby Doo is running from a spooky ghost.
Shaggy isn't doing what he does the most. Hey, come on, get involved till the mystery is solved.
Hang around for Scooby Doo.
Hey, come on, get involved till the mystery is solved.
Hang around for Scooby Doo. That's my pal. Scooby Dooby Doo.